Welcome to Turn Into Podcast. I'm Gina Baruch. Join me in my journey and discover how women's stories are woven into our lives, reflecting the beautiful tapestry of human experience. Hello and welcome back to Turn Into. Last time, I told you about meeting an interesting character who introduced me to meditation. This week, let's dive into what happened next. After the first session, my life took a wild and unexpected turn. I was stunned by how little this group knew about me. Yet, they seemed to see right into my past and even into my physical body. It was unbelievable. And I had to understand how this was possible. So, every Sunday, I went back to this place they called the laboratory and practiced with the group. The leader, Betty, was this wonderful old woman with the most beautiful motherly energy. She immediately took me under her wing and made me feel like I was part of a family. The more I went, the more I started to notice things about myself and others. I could feel and see things about the other members that I never thought were possible. They were so open and vulnerable, dedicated to their spiritual paths. This was the first time I had ever been in a group where I didn't feel like I had to wear a mask. I could just be me, and that was a huge relief. This group was a mix of people in their 50s and people in their 20s, like me. It was clear that age had nothing to do with experience or capacity. We were all on our own unique paths. Caridad could listen to angels. Richard was into astrology. Maria was all about praying, and Jasmine was into science. Cynthia could talk to spirits, and Mariana was able to communicate with animals. It was so much fun and interesting. I didn't feel like a weirdo anymore. I felt like an X-Man surrounded by all these other wonderfully strange people just like me. At first, many of the terms were confusing to me, but because my mind was a blank slate, free of preconceptions or judgment, it was easier to learn, and eventually, the ideas just started to click. As I continued with the sessions, I began to feel things much more deeply. I cried more easily, but I also laughed more. The world seemed more vibrant, more alive. I started to see beauty everywhere and felt a profound sense of connection to everything and everyone around me. My first months were a radical physical and emotional detox. I had weird physical symptoms. I was crying for no reason, and in less than a month, I got rid of any relationships that didn't align with my new frequency. I said goodbye to boyfriends addicted to weed, and even my roommate, who wasn't mean, but we didn't just match anymore. I was changing so fast, and the universe was clearing the path. One morning, I remember a small handwritten sign I had seen months earlier in a window that read, "Room for rent, only Mrs." I wasn't sure I would pass the Mrs. exam, but I knew I had to try. I followed my intuition, and there it was, the house I was looking for. I rang the bell, and a smiling nun opened the door. "Do you rent rooms?" I asked. "Yes," she said with a warm smile. Sister Esther immediately pulled me inside and gave me a tour. It was a beautiful, classic old house with incredible details. On the first floor was a communal kitchen and a chapel. On the second floor were 3 big bedrooms, each of them with 3 twin beds. The rent was a bargain, especially since the house was in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city. On top of that, it included breakfast every day. But there was one catch in the fine print. Girls were not allowed home after 10:30 p.m. Cinderella had more flexibility than us. Even so, I always found a way to stay out when I wanted to. The most amazing thing was that the nuns never judged me for my behavior. Instead, they love and support me. Every night, I would come home from work, chat with them, and then go to the studio where the other girls were studying or listening to music. I would hang out with them until late at night. I made wonderful connections there, and we're still friends today. My bond with the nuns was, and still is, so strong that even years later, when the Mother Superior passed away, I dreamt of her. Another time, I dreamt of Sister Esther in a different house I had never seen before. There was a church on a slope, and when I called her, she told me she had been transferred to a new house in Puerto Rico, and was shocked when I knew about the church on the slope. Even when we are no longer together, we are always connected. I kept going to the laboratory every Sunday. In the beginning, I was freaked out. My mind was so open that I was perceiving so many things. I could hear drawers opening and closing in the next room after midnight, when actually everybody was sleeping. Betty told me not to worry about it. I was in a safe space with the nuns, and my ego was just trying to scare me from waking up. I needed to be strong and keep going. This journey wasn't just about perceiving things about others. It was about waking up to my own life. I began to understand why I had been so distant from my father and why I had held onto so much fear. The sessions provided a safe space to confront these long-held wounds, and with each new insight, I felt lighter. One night, I was out with my friends in Condesa, and it was past midnight. I was sitting on a bench while my friends waited for their taxis. A girl who looked about 12 and was poorly dressed caught my attention. She was with a group of other children who were selling gum on the street. Then I saw a scene that stopped my heart. A young guy, no older than 20, was sitting with a mad look on his face. He seemed to be the leader of the group. The girl was begging him for forgiveness, and he was just pushing her away. I so badly wanted to intervene and tell her, "Hey, you don't deserve that." But who was I to think my intervention will solve anything? I had to accept that this was her reality and become just a witness. A profound sense of guilt struck me. I was so privileged, a spoiled brat. I had a family, education, a job, health, friends, a safe place to sleep. And what was I doing with my life? That memory still haunts me. What happened to that girl? Was I an accomplice for doing nothing? Slowly, without even trying, I reduced my alcohol consumption until one day I had no desire to drink anymore. I knew there had been a change in my mind. Once I solved my issues with my father, my desire to drink disappeared. I can if I want to, I just don't have the desire anymore. This was so different from how many groups treat addiction, which often focuses on avoiding the substance rather than getting to the root of the desire. Every laboratory session was a different experience. It felt like there was a portal there, and through it, different masters communicated from other dimensions. It could be an acupuncture master using needles on our bodies, a Native American shaman dancing around us, a fairy, or a scientist replacing organs. The variety of masters was endless. I saw so many miracles happen. I remember one child who arrived with paralysis and began to move. I could easily see people's past life and also their futures. One day, Maria was concerned about her finance, and a master told me her mom had saved some money in a jacket. The next day, Maria found gold coins hidden in one of her mom's old jackets. At that time, I didn't know we were practicing telepathy, which is a capacity every human being has. If you read Lorna Barnes' book, Angels in My Hair, you will find that many of my experiences are similar to hers. The more I meditated, the more I remembered. It was like the truth was always there, and it just clicked. Sometimes there were new guests at the laboratory, and I could tell some of them were misaligned with reality. I would get so upset and ask the masters, "Why do you allow these people to come?" They would say, "Because you humans are lazy. You don't want to think. We allow diversity in the laboratory so you can practice discernment and find what is true." I didn't understand at that time that they were pushing me to use my intuition. How do you develop that skill? When you face two or more facts, one may be true and the other false, or perhaps they all are true, or all false. The combinations are infinite. Intuition requires us to be present and to practice over and over again until we can listen to our gut and recognize the truth immediately. The laboratory was an amazing experience. I like to think of it as the kindergarten of energy, with Betty as the master and the rest of us as her students. This group gave me the foundations of how energy works. I remember her telling me, "Gina, the universe isn't asking you to save someone else. The only thing it's asking you is to be responsible for your own energy. Don't throw your flowers to the pigs." Teachings that cost me a lot of tears and more than 10 years to learn. I also noticed the big difference between meditating alone and meditating in a group. When I meditated by myself, I become aware of my own thoughts and feelings. But in the laboratory, we could mirror ourselves in the group and quickly identify our blind spots. We could get a deeper understanding of any topic by accessing a bigger picture. For example, imagine the topic is an elephant. Each member of the group will perceive a different part of the elephant. When we put all of our perceptions together, we could see a panoramic picture that would have taken any of us months or years to get on our own. That's the power of community. And it's not restricted to meditation groups. It could be any groups. It could be sports teams, a business team, or a praying group. Not everyone in the group progresses at the same speed. Some people have been there for over 10 years and were still at the very beginning. I later learned not to judge. We're all on different paths, and some of us learn faster than others. The way our minds are set up plays a crucial role in how we process information. But in the end, we will all get to the same destination. The key is to keep a beginner's mindset, staying open to new ideas while constantly questioning what is real. So, how did the laboratory start? Through conversations with Betty, I learned about Christina, the group's founder. She didn't go to school, so her writing skills were very poor. But in the 70s, she wrote 2 books that you cannot find in a library, only by the hand of someone. The story says that at an early age, she was contacted by beings from another planet and later began her spiritual journey. She was never interested in being famous or living from her healing skills. She was an ordinary woman who had a printing business and could also be in different parts of the world at the same time. She founded the laboratory in Mexico and had students all over the world. In one of her books, she explains the science behind energy and predicted many of the technological advances we see today, including AI, androids, clones, and hybrids. Since Christina had already passed away by the time I arrived to the group, I cannot confirm what's true about the story. I can only share my personal experience of being there. The years passed quickly. It was already 2014. I had moved into an apartment with my partner Andres, started a new job, and doubled my income. My work took me to places like Silicon Valley, Colombia, and El Salvador, while for pleasure I traveled to New York, Chicago, London, Paris, Berlin, Peru, and Costa Rica. Life was truly good, and I had no doubt that meditation was the source of all these blessings and abundance. One day, we had a visitor at the laboratory. It was Padma, a Mexican woman around her 40s who was a member of the group for many years, until she met a guru, Aman, fell in love with her and followed her to India, where she became a renouncer, which is kind of a nun. Padma introduced us to Aman, and later I met her at one of her seminars in Dallas. Aman is one of the most influential spiritual leaders in India, and she frequently tours North America, Europe, and Asia to share her wisdom and hugs. When I arrived at the hotel and finished checking in, I was immediately struck by the scene. The room was beautifully decorated with flowers, and Amma sat on a throne in her white clothes while Hindu chants played in the background. It was impressive, and I had no idea what to expect. A huge line of people was waiting to receive a hug from her. Finally, it was my turn. A woman from Amma's team held my right shoulder, another held my left arm, and they pushed me into her chest. It was so quick that I barely had time to understand what had happened. I would be lying if I said that it was the most loving maternal hug I have ever felt. But I didn't judge. I just sat there and enjoyed the experience. The chants and the teachings were beautiful. It wasn't until the next day that something truly strange happened. I was waiting for the shuttle outside the hotel when a gentle breeze swirled toward me. It felt conscious, and time seemed to stand still. It was an eternal moment. and if the breeze had been waiting for me all along. It wrapped around me, and I felt a soft, strong energy. It was pure love. The breeze then unwrapped me, and I watched it leave, rustling some leaves in its path. It was a magical moment, and I looked around to see if anyone else had noticed it. But everyone else, glued to their phones, completely missed it. Right away after I returned from my seminar, I dreamt with a baby 3 consecutive times. It wasn't until the last dream that I asked myself, when was my last period? I ran to the pharmacy and bought a test. It was positive. I ran back and bought 2 more tests, and they were also positive. We hadn't planned it, but I was already 29, living with my partner, and we were financially stable enough to raise a child. It wasn't the end of the world, but our lifestyle and priorities changed immediately. I was only 1 month pregnant and I'm already super sensitive, crying even if a fly died in front of me. After 2 weeks, I lost the baby spontaneously. At first, I was sad. I had already started dreaming of this life, but I soon understood that it was a sign. I wasn't ready to be a mom yet. I needed to do what I needed to do before jumping into that stage of my life. The doctor applied anesthesia and did his work. When I woke up, the first thing I thought was, I'm going to India. My partner didn't believe me, but the same day, I bought my tickets to Delhi. What do you think of this turning point in my life? Do you think the universe was sending me a message, or was it just a coincidence? In my next episode, discover my arrival to Delhi and all the adventures I had to go through in order to get into Amma's ashram, as well as an unexpected event that will shock me. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support the work I'm doing, please consider checking out my Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes. Your gratitude and support help me create more content you love. You can also follow me at Instagram at Gina Baruch Art. See you next week, and remember, you were born to shine.